games with my, oh, there you go with that mess. Nope. Let me go and check. Use tubes. It's working like it's supposed to. Uh-oh, we getting some notifications, family. No, no, the use tubes. There we go. Don't play my emotions. Change the camera, bro. Okay, I see you. Yep. Hold on. I'm trying to turn it sideways so I can see all the comments very well, but it's giving me a hard time. You dig? And this is what I want. And every time I try to turn it sideways, it's just showing me upside down. Even if I turn it this way. No, I don't want to do this one. There we go. Jesus Christ. Oh, man, why you trick me? It changed back. Oh, wow, wow. I'm clear. I did see you, Liberty, but you disappeared. Even now it's tripping. Boo, boo, boo. I ain't really had much to talk about tonight. Carolina. I need to move this up. What is that? What is that? Oh, that's the front camera. Chat box. Let's see if that helps. Because I can't see anything. If I get it to change, it'll be perfect, but it changes back every time. I swear it does. Notifications for Liberty has followed. And that's the Twitch notification at that, which is wild. Oh, hold on. Hey, there you go. Now I can see you. Boop, 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 boop. Now you're on the middle of the screen too, which is crazy. But I don't care. I can see you. Oh, you on Twitch? Wow. Say, man, tell Tatiana how to find me on Twitch. Ain't I sold Swami on Twitch? She should be able to find me like that. And you see, I ain't cleaning up the room. I ain't hang nothing up. I stopped trying to hang it up. So I had to lay my clothes down. Getting the whole suit in the closet. So that sucked. So that's why that's on the bed. I know, right? Back at the beginning. I guess that's why I don't have any topic for us to talk about too. Hold on. Let me make sure I got the mic right. It's supposed to be something for noise cancellation. I don't know how well it works. But I know when I listen to it, because now we use that great mic. Whenever I listen to it, I'm like, man, it sounds terrible, which is wild. I can't even believe you're gonna sit here and try to clown the show. All right, let me find my cheat sheet. I did have some stuff to talk about. Yeah, I wouldn't feel right without coming partly prepared or something. So I did have some things to talk about. Men's group kind of ties into one of the things I want to talk. Oh yeah, it does come clear, but you don't get to hear the depths and the sounds. I can't set the equalizer like well with the home, the mic that we use at home. That is a Audio Technica mic, so it is a great mic. Period. And then the soundboard actually, it's a cheap soundboard, but it works good. It does what I needed to do when it ain't tripping. So, but thanks to you, we even got the lapel mic because you remember before I was just hollering at people, screaming at the phone. So now we a little bit better with the lapel mic. But men's group was great. Perfectly. Like I had an order that I wanted to do this. I had an order, but I kind of wanted to do this, but I ain't gonna worry about the order because that's a perfect question. Because one of the things I wanted to talk about, it was kind of part of the discussion of last night, but it wasn't just last night. I've been having discussion with several. It's been like, how we talked about last week and recognizing the common themes. We keep showing up, keep showing up, keep showing up. It's a message or a lesson or something for you to pay attention. You need to take some time and dig a little deeper. And the one that has been showing up is, and it's funny, I haven't seen a dude talking about it. And we've even discussed it. But I guess it keeps showing up because it's something that we need to talk about a little bit more. But I wrote it down as like actually being an active participant in your own life, in the sense that when we talked about it before, we talked about how a lot of people are mistaking their solitude and disguise and that normalize dysfunction with statements like I'm protecting my peace and I don't deal with people or stuff like that. They creating solitude to try to make it seem as though they're this healed individual, but what they've been doing is taking themselves out of the game, right? So they don't trust themselves. So they don't have to worry about making decisions and that decision be wrong. They don't have to worry about the effects because they're not taking any chances. But the downside of that, as you know, we talked about a bunch with self-awareness and our outside of just being self-aware, you got to do that self-assessment thing. You got to really be thinking about yourself. So one of the ways to be able to assess your growth is you got to take some chances. The other way we wound up talking about it, like the people who sometimes things that we see, and this is another thing that I'm learning too, sometimes things that we see as a green flag, that must be TS. That must be Tatiana. So you must decided not to go on. Yeah. So, and that's how you know that they aren't necessarily doing the work because they don't ever come to that actualization, or as they get close to it, they move away from it, right? And we start using those things that rationalize to make us feel good so we don't have to come to this acceptance that we're not really playing the game. So we'll say, like, as a matter of fact, I seen it on a post. Somebody asked, "What do you think about online dating?" And people were like, "It's trash. It's trash. It's trash." But then when you go to another post, you see a whole bunch of people talking about how they met their mate. They've been in, like, they got married from online dating. So then you ask this question: how are so many people saying it's trash, but so many people are finding success, right? Because the people that's saying it's trash haven't come to that self-actualization. It ain't trash. It's what you are actually picking from that site that is trash. Now, it's like dating, period. You gotta go through the motions, and you know what I mean? You're gonna have to filter through because everybody ain't gonna be for you for sure. But to go as far as say it's trash, or to be trash, that's more about you. But those people are the same people who also say there's pee in the dating pool. And we talked about that a ton. Those are people that they are the pee in the dating pool. They just don't realize, oh yeah, like you said, they haven't come down to that self-actualization to be able to be able to realize that, damn, like I might be the P, which is funny because how they come one way that I know that can push you to that self actualization is actually taking chances and getting out there and interacting with people. Because if you've been working on yourself, you're going to run into somebody to show you where you are at, to give you that. Remember, we talked about it. Relationships are reflective of your past, your present, and your future. They show you where you used to be, who you are, and where you'd like to go, so that you will meet people that may be a little more advanced than you. But if you only sitting around talking to yourself, you only dealing with yourself, you think you the greatest thing on earth, but you're not. You know what I mean? There's people out here um that are putting in the work, and they might be a little further in it than you, which is a wild, wild, wild. Let me move this down so I can see a little more, because it seems like I got it directly over my face now, so it's crazy. Okay, don't mind me. I think I just edited the scene as we are talking, but like we are the other example of people that we use that do that. Okay, hold on. I don't see the comments now. Oh, the people who like to profess how they ain't been in a relationship for a long time. You know what I mean? Like I see women all the time online. I see it more from women in the sense that their lack of participation is something to be proud of. You know what I mean? But essentially is your lack of participation is like you just kind of gave up. You know what I mean? And I couldn't imagine being in a space or even promoting people to be in a space where you give up on yourself. I don't care how you justify it. You know what I mean? If something you want to experience in your life is a healthy relationship, you know what that means? You got to keep trying. You know what I mean? And that's one of the benefit of looking at people who have been married a bunch of times. It is so amazing because those are people, we might laugh at them or we might talk about how we can't do it. But those are actually people who have mastered the art of trying again. And just by the law of numbers, the law of odds, at some point, if you keep trying, this is how it works. It has to. It's impossible. And we already talked about laws and theories. This is a law of odds. At some point, it's going to work. And if you give up, you don't ever know if that next stop was the exact point that is going to work. You know what I mean? Now, that's not to say that there isn't a space for healing outside of dating, allowing the space for you to be able to work on yourself, because you do that. You know what I mean? But once you do some of that, you do have to get back out there and take that chance. You have to begin to take the step to be able to start trusting yourself again. You know what I mean? Because now, as we talked about before, it'd be like your hurt self trying to protect yourself from a hurt that may not even come. You know what I mean? So if you think you worked on trust, you got to get out there. You got to try again. Stuff like that. So one of the things I was actually thinking about how it came up too, and it kind of ties into this is, we doing all this work and all that stuff. And as a matter of fact, at work today, it even came up. But it's the idea where when you have a lot of things that you need to work on, it can be, for a lack of better words, somewhat overwhelming in the sense that you begin to focus on your areas of growth so much that you don't really see how you have grown. So if you don't see how you have grown, you don't take the time to even celebrate those little small victories that you have along the way. You know what I mean? And for me, even if you don't recognize how to take the time to celebrate yourself. You got to open yourself to be able to see how the universe may be celebrating you, right? Hold on now. Don't tell me I messed up the chat, because I don't see. I know you would have said something by now. I see nobody saying nothing, man. What the blood? What the bomba? What? Uh-oh. I hear that. That's something. Oh, that's them subscriber things again. They keep coming through all the time, which is why don't mind me scratching on my nose. But just kind of some simple ways to put that in action to recognize how the universe is celebrating you. I know for myself, you get caught up. I remember the other day, as a matter of fact, I went to it's one of it's Chipotle and then it's Qdoba. Well, of that type of it's Moe's, of that type of restaurant, my favorite is always Salsaritas. And for a month or so, every randomly, my spirit be like, man, let's go get some Salsaritas. But I've been eating good with my diet and all that stuff. Okay, there we go. I see you now. Boop, boop, boop. It can be overwhelming. So that's why I'm talking about how when we forget to celebrate ourselves, the universe will give us those signs. So we just got to be able to apply that thing. Maybe this is the universe celebrating me. You know what I mean? And letting me know that I am on the right path. I am doing the right thing, whatever that means, right? So when I'm in Salsaritas, it's this. I come out and it's this new bagel spot. And I do low key from my experience, like from living in New York and stuff like that. I love bagels. I love bagel sandwiches. I eat bagels in a lot of different ways, but I don't eat them regularly enough for you to even recognize that. So they got this new bagel spot. I took pictures. I should have posted them. I've been slacking. I've been busy with work. So I have not been investing the energy I need to in the posting and stuff like that as it relates to the show. But so I stop in Jeff's Bagels and they close at 2 o'clock and it's 2:20. Now, if you've ever worked in retail or stuff like that, nobody's front door. If you close at 2 o'clock, that door is locked at 2 o'clock. But at 2:20, this door is open because I walked straight in. I'm like, oh, well, they can't be closed. And when I get in there, hey man, it might be your friend. Tell her I'm hiring. She got work for free. I'm gonna talk about that too. This is one of your dream story that you gave me is one of the examples of how I feel like the universe is celebrating me. But we'll get to that as we get through Jeff Bagels and free drinks. So when I go in there, he was like, "Oh man, sorry, we closed. We pretty much got everything wrapped up." And I see all 30 different flavors of their cream cheese covered up or whatever. So I see that. He was like, "But I can give you some bagels to take home and try." And I'm like, okay. So me being considerate, of course, which is something else that our life gave me an opportunity to also recognize the area of growth. So me being considerate, I'm like, well, let me try that one and that one. So I picked two bagels and he kind of looking at me like, that's it. So I'm like, all right, well, I picked two more, still being considerate. And after I picked two more, he kind of recognized that I wasn't getting what he was saying. So he just threw a couple more bagels in there, right? And for me, I wasn't even supposed to have that opportunity to get them bagels because them doors was technically supposed to be locked. You lock them doors. You close at 2 o'clock. Them doors, one side of the door was locked at 1:50. So all you gotta do is just hit that switch. Whop, and then the door was locked at 2 o'clock. But by 2:20, there's no way the doors are still open. And it's the front door. So it's not like they were taking garbage out because they don't take garbage out the front. You know what I mean? If you worked in food all the time, you eat most of the time at the night. When you lock that front door, you're not doing much out that front door except leaving. For real. So I get there and I get the bagels, and the bagels have been great. I even brought a couple of them here so I could eat for a little breakfast or something if their breakfast wasn't good. But if I wasn't aware enough, I wouldn't be able to apply that. That's the example of the universe uh, celebrating me. I went in there with intentions on spending money, and I got more than I would have asked for free. You know what I mean? So that's how I recognize that. Girl, hey, I need you to say that probably 3 more times because I really do recognize once I get that, once I get like for real, um, as a matter of fact, I'll talk about this just lead into that. Like once I get that one little support right there, this thing will be able to take off in a way that I can't do it by myself. You know what I mean? And I think in some ways I may have confined my dreams in the sense I haven't been allowing the space for the universe to work its magic in the sense that most of the time when I look at that idea of an assistant for real, it's really through a family lens. So I feel like in this process, even though we're doing something, I'm building something for a family. You know what I mean? A family business, a family name, some sort of legacy that, you know, a family can be proud of. So when I look at that, I look at it through a relationship lens in the sense that a wife would be necessary to help take this off. That's one of the ideas. That's one of the reasons why I tell, and even in dating, I tell people I let people talk first because I let you say what you need to say about that. But it's one of the reasons why, like, I prefer my wife not to work. I'd rather her work for the family business. If you're gonna be putting all that time and that effort and all that, then you might as well do it in something that's gonna reap more rewards for you than you ever could imagine. You know what I mean? And then it'll be fantastic for the family. So I always look at it from that that perspective. But the dream you told me about is allowing me to recognize, and some of this recognizing is coming through as we have this conversation. It's allowing me to recognize that one, like I said, I've confined the dream a little bit where I haven't been allowing the universe to oh Lord, dang. Doo-doo-doo. I don't know what that means. 423 lock. I got some notification, but um so the dream that you told me also helps me to recognize that maybe my energy is still expanding, right? And how I'm using my energy to navigate the world is growing in a way that now being able to get in contact with people who have only even heard about me. You know what I mean? And in that sense, the next step is to be able to reach people who have never even heard about me, right? And when you told me about that dream, I recognized that dream is a vehicle that could wind up happening. It's a true spiritual and emotional and energetically vehicle that I didn't even recognize could be possible as a way to spread this message. So not to just keep talking around the dream because everybody else doesn't know the dream. I think I might have told Toddy if she's still somewhere on here, she might have hung up because she loved TikTok and if we ain't on TikTok, she don't last long. Yeah, so I agree, and we do. You know what I mean? We've been working on it as a group, and you do your part. And like I said, it sounds crazy in spreading the message, right? You tell a lot of people, like you know what I mean. And I know there are people that I've worked with and they do the same thing. You know what I mean? Some people, they still got to work on their own emotions. So, when you find your little honeycomb hideout or your special thing for you that really works for you, sometimes you get very protective of that. And you don't want to share that with the world. You know what I mean? So I recognize that some people are very protective of my skill set for that same thing. You know what I mean? Which I appreciate that. But that's it. I appreciate that. I won't even move on. Oh God, she's still there. Them comments came through late. I said that like 3 hours ago. It's probably slow. That's probably what you probably the comment probably coming through fast, but the video probably just showing what I just said. But the dream was I wound up getting a text from Soul Family, and they just kind of repeated the dream word for word. One of their co-workers was like, I had a dream last night, and they were riding in the car with the guy who they had been telling them about. And I was talking to this person about spirituality and all this stuff as we driving in the car, right? And it's funny because as we read in The Alchemist, we recognized this, and we were trying to recognize our gifts as well. When the alchemist went to the lady, the gypsy, to decipher his dream, we talk about the line that she said about bringing dreams to life, but something else that she said is very powerful about the limitations of her skills, right? She was like, some dreams I can help you decipher because they're set there in a way that I can understand, but some dreams are just for you, right? So when the person told me this dream about me and them riding in the car and all this stuff, it immediately popped in my mind like this. Wow. Thank you. I appreciate that. Like, hold on, sis. Hold on, sis. Don't be saying that in public. The guy you dealing with. Like, man, I am a married woman. The guy I'm dealing with. That's funny. I appreciate it. You know what? That is emotional awareness and being respectful of who you deliver the message to. So I appreciate that, true indeed. So anyway, when they tell me that, it just kind of immediately comes to me. And the time to what I was talking about, I felt like that was another way that the universe was trying to celebrate me, because that is something I've never had happen before. I've had people who knew me. They've had conversations with me. They've talked to me personally, shook hands. We've done a various amount of things, but they knew who I was. They could point me out in the lineup. They knew my government. Some of them even know my mama. You know what I mean? But I've had people tell me that they have seen me in a dream for various things, and most of the time, it's always some old weird stuff or some old freaky mess. You know what I mean? So this was the first time that someone that I don't know at all, they have never met me. I have never met them. The only thing that they have heard, they just heard about me. So, and I told you one of my gifts is receiving messages and giving messages through the wind. So this person they've only heard of my energy, and it was able to show up to them in their dream. And that's amazing to me. That is, like I said, it was a sign for me to feel like the universe is trying to tell me you're doing something right. Because if it happened once, it can happen again. And if it happens again, it can happen again. And I do think, like I said, that's a vehicle. I never thought that like my energy could be in a way it could show up to people visually in their dreams and stuff like that. So that is an amazing thing for me. And yeah, I actually felt one of my love languages is words of affirmations, and that was a very affirmative event for me. You know what I mean? Now, of course, I deciphered what I thought the dream meant, and I talked to them about it. But that's why I also told Liberty that, she said, "May I get an assistant?" I said one of the things that popped in my mind is that person has a pivotal role in spreading this message. You know what I mean? Because it was just me, this person, and Liberty in the car. And we already talked about how, she does a fantastic job at telling people about the message, which is spreading the message. You know what I mean? Essentially just marketing like, yo, because you can't just like, hey man, you should watch this dude call himself Soul Swami. Can't just say that. You wind up having to give some of the universal message, you know what I mean? And so for that person, I thought that they had a role. So that's why I tied that into when Liberty was saying that may I get an assistant for that. And that's how we got into that whole diatribe about how I've recognized I've been kind of limiting the possibilities on how the universe can work in my favor by looking at this as a function for a family instead of a function for the world, right? And it's funny because as I think about this too, it makes me come to some realization because the next thing I'm talking about is areas of growth. So those ways the universe is celebrating me, but it also gives me an opportunity to be able to think about how I can grow. And one realization, we've been talking about dating, taking dating serious, right? And dating has always been a little wild for me in the sense that because I am surrounded by women. This one thing I know, women don't trust women. So when it gets to those moments where it's not about trusting me, 'cause it ain't about necessarily having to trust me. It's just knowing women. So me being surrounded by women has always added a dynamic that you really don't have to deal with a lot in dating. You know what I mean? As if you are a woman out there dating, most of the men are you dating there in fields that are either equal or is mostly male dominated. So you don't have to worry about that in theory, loosely. But when you know that you're working with a dude or you talk to the dude that's surrounded by women, it adds a new dynamic that you don't have to necessarily deal with. So I always knew that was an issue, but I never thought of it in terms of how this healing, this process right here, will make it different, right? And I say this because I understand that as looking for a relationship, it has to go beyond confidence of a person, insecurity of a person. It's recognizing the difficulties that the energy I have, the work that I do, the difficulty it is to date me. You know what I mean? And that is an example of that self-awareness, that self-evaluation, because we all like to think that we are an easy person to date, or at least we say that out loud. A lot of times we think dating should be easy, but a lot of times the decisions we've made, the way we live our life, our choices reflect in how difficult it is to date me. For example, if I had 15 children, it's very different than dating me with zero children. And to recognize that, you have to add that, or if I know I work a job that requires me to travel a lot, I have to recognize that that's a difficult dynamic. Or even if you're considering something that may be long distance, and that's just the circumstances that make us difficult, not even our personal attributes that may complicate things, healed or unhealed. Because the other part of this, like recognizing, like, if I'm in a committed relationship now and I get I recognize that a lot of the people that's going to be joining the soul family initially are going to be women. You know what I mean? And what kind of space does that put a woman in that sees me as her husband? What type of energy does she need to have? Right? And I see some women that have that energy, like first ladies of the church or something like that. They be having that energy, which is weird. Now, it doesn't always work in their favor, but universally, that's an energy that they have. So it's being in the space to have the emotional intelligence, which ties into what we've been talking about, to recognize how difficult dating me may be. And I wrote down something else. What did I do? So it, like I said, it's been dating is a mirror, or relationships essentially. At this point, it is, they show you where you've been, who you are, and where you're going. And I remember when I first started, well, when I went to that Reiki class, I told you all about that, where I was like, um, I remember I said it in the class. It was probably about 15, 20 of us in that class, and it was two men. And I said it, I was like, yo, the last place I want to be is sitting in this room full of women. It's just not the energy I needed. And I recognized where I was in that space. I was at really, it was the tipping point of this idea that I had, this internal idea. Right. So it is interesting because they do be. So that's exactly why I said generally speaking. And again, this is the example too, because when the pastors who be dipping out and the ones who put their first ladies in compromising situations, we see about them all the time. They always making a mess. So there are a bunch of pastors that we never even hear about because they are not just making believers, but they actually are trying to be the living word, a model of the living word for people. So they're living legitly. And I'd even go as far to say is one of the reasons why it can, some of these dynamics can be denied within organized religion is because it really ain't the majority. That makes sense. So, like, for example, if it was like 90% of pastors doing that, they'd have no option but to address it. But as long as it's like 10% or less, you can pretend like, well, as we talked about, not even pretend. You can move forward as you're addressing the majority of what you will deal with instead of preparing for just the minority of what may necessarily happen, right? So the mind state that I was kind of in leading up to that point, that tipping point where I said that in that Reiki class I remember when I first started working with supervisors, not working with them, when I started leading them, um, or even in dating, I was like, I just hope that I get to a point where, well, I don't get to a point where these people's traumas become mine. But in working, that's not how energy works. It intertwines with yours, it blends. And I didn't recognize that that was happening to me. So underlying, I had this, it was funny because I could say I like women and I can say I love women. And those two things alone allowed me to deny how much anger and hate I had towards women. Because it wasn't like I was hateful. I kept trying. It just winds up. So this is how the mirror was turned on me. I was living with this dynamic of this. We talk about this, the love hate relationship with things, right? So I was living with this dynamic of this love hate relationship with women, but I didn't really recognize how it would manifest in my dating behaviors. And then I wound up running into someone who had that same issue as a woman. She has this love hate thing with the men, you know what I mean? Which is wild. It's a wild dynamic because it's so complex. But how I learned that it wound up manifesting is it shows up in a lack of trust, in the sense that even when you're dealing with someone that's telling the truth, you don't believe them because your past experience, your limited past experiences have taught you not to, or other people have given you their traumas and having you protecting yourself from something that you may not even endure. So I recognize that that dynamic showed up in my life as a lack of trust. That's one thing, because I ain't trust myself. So how am I gonna really fully be able to trust somebody else? And then I also recognize how it showed up in my behaviors, that because it triggers insecurities, right? And one that showed up when I was experiencing the other side of the coin is passive aggressive. So that other dynamic where you have that love hate for the opposite sex, it shows up as a lack of trust and passive aggression. So that makes it easy, extremely easy, to deny that that's your issue until you hit this wall, this breaking point. And I had the relationship that we talked about when we first started this show. That that made me realize that something very important needs to change. And the one thing that I recognize that needs to change is I need to clear my heart of that dynamic. Because when we talk about these self-assessment, these realizations, we have to really do start thinking about it. If our thoughts, if our behaviors, our deep thoughts are actually matching who we want to be and where we want to go. And for me, that was also an opportunity for the universe to celebrate me, because now that I'm dealing with the other side of the coin, I get to recognize and see how far I have actually come along. Because that's not my issue at all. You know what I mean? I was, in the sense that, we work together to give people back their own stuff. And a lot of stuff I was carrying was because of what I was praying for something not to happen, but I didn't have the tools to stop it from happening. I didn't want other people's traumas to become mine, and they did. And they wound up creating that dynamic, because some of the issues that I had weren't even mine. You know what I mean? They were from stories or the people I connected my spirit to, or things like that. It just winds up being interesting. So again, that's some of that emotional intelligence. Again, we're talking about how we recognize how the universe and God, our ancestors, whoever you like to call it, celebrates us when we don't aware, and when we are not celebrating ourselves enough for our growth, and then also being aware enough to recognize opportunities but we still need to work on ourselves. So another thing, an event wound up giving me this to see an area that I still need a little more growth. And it's funny, Liberty, that you even asked about the men's meeting, because it also came up in the men's meeting, in having conversations around that word selfish, right? And so I wound up with a friend, wound up having it was very embarrassing, right? For them more so. It was more embarrassing for them, which embarrassing can be traumatic. And then it was just a wild situation. It was just crazy, right? And when it wound up happening, my first thought was to think about their embarrassment, think about how they feel, think about that, think about that, think about that, think about that. And I did. Enjoy your food, shorty. We about to wrap up anyway. I did think about that, and I recognize that an area where I still need to improve is that I still prioritize other people's feelings, right? And because in that situation, as difficult it was for me, I just really thought about how difficult it was for them and didn't even take the time to process my own emotions until after the event, right? And how that winds up tying into that selfish idea, because I think one of the reasons why we as a people do that, have this reason to be able to, or have this way of prioritizing others' feelings over ours, is around that idea and our relationship with that word selfish. We really don't want to be selfish or seem selfish, right? But I recognize that there's a skill set that those people have that we need to develop. And that skill set resides in prioritizing your feelings higher, just as high, if not higher, than everyone else's. So not necessarily find need to be able to put them first. Their comfort, like we see it, we call it disrespect. When the people walking around and you in the grocery store and they playing their music on their phone loud, we think of stuff like that as disrespect. But essentially is as a person that's prioritizing their needs and emotions just as much as everybody else's. Because that music is doing something for them. They're playing it for their own personal reason, and they're not worried about how you may feel about it. And it's I think when you do that, there's a healthy boundary that you need to have. But that's why selfishness is one of those words that we have to have a different relationship with. Because for ourselves and for our healing and for our goals and for the things that where the direction that we want to go in, there are going to be plenty of times where we will need to be that word, selfish. There'll be plenty of times where we would need to be inconsiderate, because what we recognize is it's only that because that's the perspective they choose to apply to it. But like I said, we change the perspective, even using the example of somebody playing their music loud in the grocery store. Once you change that perspective as that's a person prioritizing their needs and their mental health and their emotions. You know what I mean? And they not worried about me. So why am I worried about them? Why am I expending energy that I cannot get a return on investment? I've been trying to remember that all day. And those words could not come to me. So I guess it was meant for y'all to hear it. But don't have that wasted energy where you're not necessarily getting your return on investment. No doubt. Really, that's we have a great time. That's pretty much all I want to talk about today. Again, I keep looking out the window because I'm by this little man-made pond. It look like it looks wild, but you put me by water, I'm look out. You It's not even by water. You put me by a window, I am looking out the window. I used to get in trouble so much in school for that. They always swore I was not paying attention, and I wasn't, but I was still listening. So the two different things. I don't gotta pay attention to you to listen to you. I can do something else. Like I can eat my food and still hear what you say. You know what I mean? I can walk and talk at the same time. I can chew gum and think. You know what I mean? All that stuff. So I can definitely hear you and understand what's going on and retain information without giving you my undivided attention. Because looking out the window don't take that much energy. That's the least amount of energy until I drift off and I'm not focusing. Listen, this is how bad it was in school that even the kid, I mean my the people, my friends, man, we had this saying we should say all the time. Hey, Mr. Squirrel. I swear you be out there looking so crazy. I never get girl. They renegade girl. They told me they used to give me hell. Well, we used to always do that because every time you catch me, I'm sitting here looking out the window. It don't matter. I can be at the front of the classroom and turn around and stare at the window. So that was the thing where I'll be staring out the window. Hey, Mr. Squirrel. Hey, Mr. Rabbit. Stuff good time. So now I see stuff jumping around in this little man-made pond. So it got me tripping. So now I know I'm off topic. Um, I will be home Thursday, so we'll be able to have book club in our normal setting. Next week, we are going to be in Memphis. So Memphis will probably be another show like this where we just kind of be loose with it. You might, yeah, just be loose with it if we get a show. Because other than that, well, ain't gonna be no show. I feel like this compromise. As a matter of fact, when I was talking to Liberty about the dream, I talked about one of the things that I hope to model by doing this is the commitment that you got to have to yourself. Because for most part, we understand we've been doing this. If you come on every week, we've been doing this every week. You know what I mean? Every week for we getting closer to dang 2 years straight. And that's the sort of commitment you got to have, an investment in yourself, the time and effort that you got to have in yourself. So I hope to, that's the energy I'm putting out there. And I hope that's the energy that we shaping together. So consistency, stability, and determination, all those things, blah, blah, blah. But we will be fine on Thursday. Next week, we'll be in Memphis. Oh, wow. I don't know if I'll be able to do book club next week because I might be just getting back from the airport, but I doubt it though. But yeah, because I come back. Yeah, 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 yeah. Memphis next week. I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. I hope hump day's lit for you. And I look forward to seeing you on Thursday with book club as we continue reading. I was about to say before I let go, but no, that's the other book. That's I could not remember that name either, but it makes me want to holler. All right, family, I appreciate you. Many blessings and gratitude. Peace.